But first, there's this. President Trump posted on Truth Social this: the golden age of America is upon us, celebrating the stock market's new record highs and January's surging job growth. Here's President Trump yesterday.
You know what? We just hit the highest price in the history of the stock market, 50,000. And a lot of people are getting rich with your 401ks and everything else. So our country is back. We have the hottest country anywhere in the world. So it's pretty cool, right?
The economy added 130,000 non-farm jobs last month. In the month of January, reported this yesterday. The unemployment rate ticked lower to 4.3%, a better than expected report. Joining me now is the White House Deputy Press Secretary Kush Desai. Kush, good morning to you. Thanks so much for being here. Tell us more about this report and whether it's resonating with the broad public.
Thanks for having me on, Maria. Look, yesterday's blockbuster expectation-smashing jobs report reinforces what we've been saying all along. President Trump's economic agenda has a proven track record. It unleashed historic job, wage, and economic growth during his first term, and we're seeing that same story unfold now during his second term. Yesterday's job report showed a stunning 170,000 private sector jobs being added. We saw unemployment tick down, labor force participation tick up, real wages continue to increase. And all of this is happening in spite of the fact that we inherited an absolute disaster from Joe Biden. Yesterday's job report showed revisions that 2 million fewer jobs were created during the last 2 years of the Biden presidency than we previously thought. And the jobs he did create were largely going to illegal aliens, foreigners, or to make work government jobs. President Trump is focused on real, sustainable, private sector-led economic growth. And this is just the beginning. The president's policies are just now beginning to take effect. Last summer, the president passed the largest tax cut bill.
That's right. And the big, beautiful bill is expected to have a real impact. But you make a good point about the revisions, and I'm glad you brought it up, because we were talking about that downward revision yesterday when the jobs numbers first came out. But the revisions and the downward revision specifically has to do with Joe Biden's jobs agenda.
That's exactly right. I mean, what we saw under the Biden presidency was that the private sector was being strangled by cumbersome regulations, by tax hikes, by these DEI policies. And Biden was basically relying on juking the stats by adding fake government jobs. President Trump is doing the exact opposite. We're right-sizing the federal workforce. So we're seeing falling unemployment and robust job growth despite slashing government jobs. Federal employment is now at the lowest level since 1966. So we're focused on real, sustainable private sector economic growth, not government-led growth.
Yeah, but what about all this pushback that the president is getting? I mean, after all, in Congress yesterday, you had Republicans, 6 Republicans, siding with Democrats to clip the president's wings on his tariffs on Canada. I mean, literally weeks before we're going to get the Supreme Court decision on the IEEPA use of emergency tariffs. The Republicans are pushing back. You got Tom Tillis, who's a Republican senator, threatening that he's not going to confirm Kevin Warsh. What is the president going to do about that?
Look, here's the thing. The tariffs have delivered one historic win after another for the American people. The president has used tariffs to secure over a dozen trade deals that have leveled the playing field for American workers. We've seen now falling trade deficit and surging American exports thanks to the president's use of tariffs. We've seen trillions of dollars in investments flowing in, including the states that many of these members of Congress are from, to make and hire in America. So we're focused on implementing tariffs. The president's focused on using these tariffs to make America great again. And I think members of Congress are going to continue realizing that they're just on the wrong side of this, that the president's use of tariffs are making America great again.
Yeah, I mean, the president said that for those Republicans who are going against his tariff agenda, there will be consequences. What did he mean by that?
Well, look, the president is the undisputed leader of the Republican Party, and I think everyone knows that he's the one who's in charge, and he's the one who's ushering in America's next golden age.
Right. So is he going to do anything in terms of in other words, he's not going to support those those members come the midterm elections? Is that what he means by consequences? He's not going to support. I mean, he wants to support Republicans because he doesn't want to lose the majority. So what are the consequences?
Look, I'm not going to get ahead of the president, but I think everyone knows that the American people are with the president and that members of Congress should back the president.
Well, look, the president's affordability agenda has had a major impact on health care. He unveiled the TrumpRx site to lower prescription drug costs. We had on the CEO of Novo Nordisk yesterday. We had on the CEO of Moderna. Everybody's on board with this. He's also obviously introduced the Trump accounts aimed at giving newborns a financial head start. That was a big idea for young people. Where else will the president be focused in terms of reining in costs?
Sure. Look, I think it's hard to overstate how important TrumpRx.gov is. Politicians from both parties for decades have talked about high drug prices. President Trump's the first to actually do something about it with these most favored nation drug pricing deals. Right now, the site has about a few dozen drugs. We're continually adding more drugs. We're negotiating with more pharmaceutical companies to get their products on TrumpRx.gov. And I think the next push here is for Congress to pass President Trump's great health care plan, to codify these MFN deals into perpetuity so every single American patient, whether they're cash pay, whether they're using their insurance copay, can access these savings that the president has secured for the American people.
Yeah, and I think even these pharmaceutical companies who are recognizing this is going to take a hit on their earnings, they are coming forward and saying, yes, I want to work with President Trump on this to lower costs. Here's the CEO of Novo Nordisk with me here on this program yesterday. Watch this. Tell me the difference of getting the prescription from your doctor, going the traditional way, as opposed to going direct to the TrumpRx website.
Our company is suffering right now this year on its share price, on its growth rates, and in many ways, many of our investors have been dissatisfied with the price concessions that we gave. But I think it was the right thing to do. The Trump administration allowed us to really think longer term and make sure that we think not beyond this quarter or this year and go much, much further in. It is really, really important to realize that when today you go to TrumpRx or any of the other telehealth providers, you have a just easier time being able to source one of these medications, still going through a physician, still going through basically all the prescription needs that you need, but it allows you to find a medication at really affordable prices, right. I would say today. And this is something that many have been begging for, waiting for, even when they had insurance through the commercial channels. There were so many obstacles placed upon them that simply it was theoretical to get the medications, but not realistic. Today, that realism is there.
You know, Kush, obviously Novo Nordisk, the CEO there, is the manufacturer of the obesity and GLP drug, Ozempic. The president has that on the list. He also has IVF drugs on the list. What other drugs, medications should we expect that the president will be able to put on that list to broaden out that portfolio and lower further prices?
Well, like I said, we've got a few dozen drugs so far on the website, not just GLP-1s and fertility drugs, but also asthma inhalers and other products. And we're going to negotiate with every single pharmaceutical company to get as many of their products on there as possible. And again, pass that great healthcare plan. Yeah.
All right. Great to have you, Kush. Thanks very much. We'll be watching your work, Kush Desai, at the White House. Thank you.